Anin Ginawa. Today we're going to talk about compound sentences. This is where you have A form and B form together. Please make sure that you read the corresponding document lesson and do the exercises at the end of the lesson, where there are answer sheets or answer keys at the end of the lesson as well. All right, so just some things to recall. A form is a simple independent clause that could be understood on its own. So really basic sentences, things like he ate, I cleaned, you went to the store. All of these could be understood on their own. And they don't need any additional information to be understood. So other things, if I start a sentence or if there is a phrase that would be stated such as when, as, or if I go to the store, you are waiting for more information. That's in a B form phrase and is considered a dependent clause because it is dependent on more information to make sense. One of these, and then Ojibwe also has B form introducers. Those are our like when, where, what, why, and how questions. Like if I say how, you're waiting for the rest of it. So the rest of it would be like, are you? How are you? Or how do you do that? Anything that follows that word is going to be in B form, because if you peel the word off, the introducer off, that B form phrase no longer makes sense because it was dependent on that initial question word for its full meaning. Like, for example, Anin Asian Causian, how are you called? We often translate it as what's your name, but technically it means how are you called? If I just said, are you called? You're waiting for more information because it was dependent on that how question for its full meaning. Now, a lot of phrases are compound sentences, meaning that there is an independent clause and a dependent clause together, making a more complex sentence. And this is something that is very common. B form phrases are almost more common, I would say, than A form phrases. So you'll hear or read them a lot. I really like them. It gives much more movement and ability to function in the language. And honestly, there is a little phrase called, it's just this. It's a preverb, I think, j. In some dialects, it is da. Both mean the same thing. Both of them mean in order to. Or in English, when you're saying like, oh, I went home to get my keys, that to, I went home to get my keys, that's where j will come in, or da if you're over in Wisconsin. I don't know what other areas other than there use da, but know that da and j are synonymous. In your area, in like White Earth, Leech Lake, I think Red Lake, you'll hear j more often. But I love this phrase because I use it all the time. It's like when in doubt, and in English, you can, if you can substitute the English phrase for like in order to or to, j works really well. Anyway, had to, geek out about that a little bit because anyway, this language is just So cool. All right, so let's say you can ask yourself a couple questions before you want to say a sentence. If your sentence starts with when, as, or if, or even in order to, your sentence phrase will start with a be form construction. So let's try thinking about it in English. Like, if you are hungry, you should eat. If you are hungry, you should eat. So looking at that, you can look at both sides and go, which one can stand on its own as a sentence without being reliant on anything else for further information. You should eat. That can be a sentence by itself. You should eat is an A form construct. Sorry for my cat there. Really nosy. I apologize. Um, Cats. Anyway, you should eat stands on its own. So let's check out this one. If you are hungry, that one does not stand on its own. It needs more information. It is dependent on this phrase. Now, keep in mind that when I say like dependent and independent clauses, this is an oversimplification. There are more instances in Ojibwe where the be form construct would be used when in English it would be more independent. I would call it personally more of a gray area. I don't know how to linguistically describe it. I'm still learning too. Um, but this is the easiest way for me to introduce the concept. So in Ojibwe, we have a word for if, which is gishpin, but it's not always necessary. A lot of new speakers use it. But since this sentence could be understood as when you are hungry, you should eat. It could also be understood as if you are hungry, you should eat. As you're hungry, you should eat. Things like that. Then we don't need gishpin. Gishpin emphasizes the idea of if. Now, if you want to emphasize it in that sentence, you can use gishpin, but we're going to stick with the easiest thing. And so in this case, we need the word for hungry. He or she is hungry. Bakade. The word for eat. Do we see anything in this sentence indicating what that person is eating? Is there an object receiving action from this word? No. They're not saying you should eat a sandwich, and they're not saying you should eat soup. They're just saying you should eat in general. And so we know, since there's no transfer of action to an object, there's no it in this sentence. This word is going to be the VAI, which is Wiesene. Running out of ink in the marker, it seems. Wiesene. Good. If you are hungry, you should eat. So there's two ways to approach this. You could write out your A-form statement just because that's the one you're most familiar with and you know it. But if you're in a real-time conversation and you're trying to figure out how to say this, usually our brain goes in a linear step-by-step fashion. And so let's start up here. Buckade, he or she is eating. We're saying is hungry, if you are hungry. So that means we need to know how to use the be form version. Who is doing it? You. Singular, yin. This could also work for plural use. Like if y'all are hungry, then y'all should eat. We'll go over both. So in that case, all we need is a good day, and you check your VAI paradigms unless you already know it by heart. and we add on the suffix for the B form gin, bakadayan. This one word means when, as, or if you are hungry. When you are hungry, or if you are hungry, you should eat. So we know our verb is we sin it. I'll put this down here. We sin it. We know the person doing it is you, gin. So we need some form of gin. Put get. We know our time tense is should. Our should time tense is da. Ita. And since we're talking about you, our short vowel falls off the end. And now you have your B form, A form, compound sentence. Bakadayan, gitawisin. If you are hungry, you should eat. Or when you are hungry, you should eat. Bakadayan, gitawisin. That was pretty simple. So in the case that you're talking about you all, or use, ginawa, if yous are hungry, yous should eat. Look at, we still start the same way, bakade, instead of yun or yun, it is yeg. Bakadeg, da, yisin. Our short vowel stays on because we're no longer just talking about nin or gin, and we add our ginawa ending because ge plus means ginawa. Bakadeyeg kitawi sinem. If or when yous are hungry, you should eat. So that's pretty simple. I really like B form. It just it says so much with so little. Anyway, we can try another one. So know what you want to say. Know which part is independent of anything else for additional meaning or to make sense, and which part is dependent on something for additional meaning. So let's say if you want to go outside and play, you need to finish your work. This is a more of a mouthful full sentence. So if you want to go outside and play, you you must finish your work. All right, so first let's identify A form from B form. If you want to go outside and play, that one is dependent on more information to make sense. You must finish your work. That one stands by itself. So we're gonna underline our A form, and there is something with A form independent. Now there's something I want to point out about this. This is actually two B form phrases. If you want to go outside, that's phrase one. So if you want to go outside and play. Now in English we say and play, but the other thing that could be said instead of and is to. And what was that thing from the beginning that I mentioned? if it can be substituted with in order to or to, then you know that's where j comes in, and j will always precede be form. So here is our other be form phrase. So we actually have be form, a form. All right. So if you want to go outside to play, in this case, we're going to emphasize if. So if you want to go outside and play, you must finish your work. So if is gishpin, as I mentioned. Gishpin. What is the time tense for will or want to? It is we, if you want to go outside and play. So time tense, we. We're talking about you, yin. Now, we don't put yin on front because it's be form. Yin is going to tack on to the end of the verb. So we, now our verb, go. Our verb is go. That is ija. And our person is yan. Yin is yan. If you want to go, ich bin wie jayen. If you want to go, our word for outside is agwajing. And play or to play. What was that word? It was je. Je. Now, who wants to play? In English, it doesn't specify, but we know that it's still you wanting to go outside in order to play. So we need our yun ending, and our verb for he or she plays is odomino. So we put odomino, in our short vowel stays because it's in B form. It only falls off in A form. Odomino yen. Ich bin wie Jayen Agwajing to Odomino yen. So there are two ways to do this. I'm going to translate this one as if this is that A form sentence. It's going to change our meaning in English from must to should. You should finish your work. In Ojibwe, we know, okay. Let's see. We know the person, Yiji, or Yi, Gin, sorry. All right, so a person, you. Our time tense is da, or should, would, or could, get da. And this technically will translate to you should finish working. Because in Ojibwe, it's verb-based. In English, your work would be more of a noun. So keeping in mind how that worldview affects language. Kita yije. Yije is a preverb meaning to finish. So we're gonna stick that in there. Yije, kita yije. And our verb is anoki. Anoki. Ich bin wie Jayen Agwajing, je Odominoyen, Gedagiji Anoki. If you want to go outside and play, you should finish your work. Now, that was it was a lot, but it was simple. We actually have fewer words here than we do in the English form. Now, there is another way to do this. Instead of having an A form phrase, you should finish working. We're going to go back to that must. So this is something that I learned recently. Uch ego. Uch ego in Ojibwe is kind of a urgency sense. You must. Buch ego. However, buch ego must precedes B form. So then we end up with B form, B form, B form, where their dependence on each other gives the meaning. So Gishpin we Jayan Agwajing Je Odamanoyan Buch Ego Ge. Oh wait. Je or Ge. You must. Wrong color. This is like the future definitive ge time tense in B form. Ge. And then we still have our hiji preverb. Hije. Our verb is still anoki. Anoki. And our person is still you. And so that was two ways of doing it, with an A form part or all B form. And this is why I say like B form is a little more commonly used, heard more often. Ishbin wiyajayan agujing jitudamanayan wuchigo ge ishinokian. If you want to go outside and play, you must finish your work. There's more urgency in this version. Let's see. And I don't know, I guess I should give this disclaimer in all of my videos. I'm still learning too, so I apologize if there are mistakes, and I'll add edits if I do catch mistakes later on. But that just occurred to me that I needed to say that anyway. So let's see. Let's look at another example. I feel so awkward doing videos. I'm much more in my comfort zone of typing everything up in a Google Doc and being like, here you go, read it. And then I just get so awkward doing videos. So I hope you're enjoying them. All right, let's see. If you want to play, you should do your work. We already did that one. Let's see. When you want to read, you should sit on the carpet. There we go. That's one that I've said in my classroom before. If you want to read, you should sit on the carpet. If you want to read, you should sit on the carpet. No, right. So here are what we're gonna do. Here's what we're gonna do. Gin is you. Know who you're talking about. If you want to read, that is a B form phrase because it's dependent, and you'd be waiting for more information if you hear someone say to you, if you want to read, you should sit on the carpet. That is A form. So here's our B form, and here's our A form. Let's see. If you want to, the will or want to tense, again, That is we. Our word for read. There are a couple verbs for this. Do we know what the person wants to read? Is there an it in the sentence? There's not. There's no book, magazine, pamphlet. There's nothing indicated for the object that is being read, only the action of reading. And so we know that's a VAI verb because there's no transfer of action to an it. So our VAI verb for read is agendaso. Agendaso. And then we have, we're still talking about gin. The should tense is da. Sit on the carpet. So that's a phrase where you kind of have to break it down. What do you know? What's the word for he or she is sitting? Namadabe. So we're gonna make na ma the bit. So how do you say on the carpet? Well, our word for carpet is anakan. Anakan. If it's in or on or at something, all you need to do is add a locative to the end that means in, at, or on. And that locative suffix is, in this case, usually ing or ong or some form of ing. So we're gonna add anakaning. So this covers on the. All right, so let's build it. If you want to read, or that one could also be understood as when you want to read. So we're gonna omit gishpin. Now all we need is the time tense. You want to read. We. No person in front because it's a be form. Read, agendaso. In da, so short vowel stays because it's in B form. And then we need gin, B form ending is yen. We agendatien. When, as, or if you want to read, you should sit on the carpet. Excuse me. You, gin, in A form is get, and then we have da. Our verb is namadabe. We're talking about you or me, nin or gin, and it's an A form. And so what happens to our short vowel on the end? Falls off. Da, namadub. Now we'll put in anakan, the carpet, anakan in. You should sit on the carpet. Now some speakers would probably throw in this word ima, which means there. You should sit there on the carpet. It's not necessary, but you'll likely hear it a lot. So we gidasian kita namadap ima anakaning. When you want to read, you should sit on the carpet. So there you have it. B form, A form, compound sentence. And they're kind of fun to build. So if you want to practice on your own, you can think about little things that happen during your day and just sit down and try and write out those sentences or try and describe what you're doing as you're doing it. Like, first I'm eating dinner. So akawe, nimijin, nagoshegui siniwin. First I'm eating dinner. And then we gizi biabite oyan. And then I will brush my teeth. So things like that. And did you hear how halting I was in that? It's because it's not a phrase that I typically say to myself. Um, but when I practice narrating my actions through the day, it does help me get faster because conversation happens very quickly. When you're trying to describe something to students or to a coworker, it happens quickly. And sometimes we don't realize how quickly we are talking, listening, and processing until you're trying to code switch and do it in another language. So that is just a little tip for practicing. You can turn it into a game, do it with your kids at home or even at school to help them speak more. What are you doing? Anine Nuisan, I am eating. What are you going to do next? Or and then what are you going to do? Uh Minowa Anine or sorry, Anin wise Shigen, what will you do? Ishwa we sinian after you eat. Oh yeah. Ge domino yen, and then I will play. Ge wio domino yen. So lots of practicing things. So now if your sentence starts with A form and you follow it with B form. So some examples of that would be like you should eat if you are hungry. So I'm just going to take those sentences and flip them. We already did if you are hungry, you should eat. Now we're doing you should. Oh, got me noise fast. Sorry. You should eat if you are hungry. So identifying which one you should eat. That stands as a form phrase. You should eat. A form. If you are hungry, there's our B form. So again, we know it's been. We know our time tense, should, would, or could. Da. We know that we are not talking about eating any specific it or being, animate being in this sentence. And so eat is BVAI. We sin eh, but our short vowel falls off the end in A form when we're talking about you. And then if you are hungry, again, when can be substituted, so we aren't going to emphasize gishpin. So just kind of use this as your B form indicator. You are hungry. We know our verb is bakade. It's present tense, so we don't need to add anything in front. And we're talking about gin still. So let's put it together. Gin, get da, get da, reason. You should eat. And then if you are hungry, when you are hungry, bakade yen. Kita reason, A. Bakade yen, B. So it's that simple. Let's try another one. You should sit on the carpet to read. Ooh. So this one isn't exactly flipped from the other one. Our other sentence was if you want to read or when you want to read, you should sit on the carpet. So in this case, you should sit on the carpet. You should sit on the carpet to read. That's the easier way to say it. Instead of like, you should sit on the carpet if you want to read. We just know in order to read. There's our in order to. And so the to, j always has precedes be form. So now we know for sure this is our be form sentence. And then you should sit on the carpet. That could have a period on the end and it would make sense. So we know that it's not dependent on anything. That means it is a form. So who's doing it? Yin. Who's wanting to read? Still Yin. Our verb is sit. Namadabe, but the I falls off, so no I on the end. Should. Would or could is our da tense. On the carpet. Again, you could have a ma for there if you want, but our word carpet on nakan. And we have our locative suffix on there, ing or on the. All right, and our verb for read, we don't know what they're reading. Our verb is agendaso. Agendaso. The short vowel stays on the end because it's in B form. So let's put it together. You should sit. Let's just say that. Ge da namadab. Namadab. You should sit. Da namadab. I hope you can see that. It's kind of small. Sorry. On the carpet. Anakane. Anakan. Ing. Again, our ing is the on. And then jit. Jit is our B form introducer. Jit in order to. Again. Da so. Who's doing it? Yin. That is yan. Gidano madab anakning. Jit gandasian. Again, you might end up with imma in here. Kita namadab imma anakning. Jit gandasian. Okay. See, I hope that makes sense. I like that structure. This is such an easy word to use, preverb. Let's see. It works. Let's do a negative. Yeah. All right. So how about you should eat over your plate so you don't make a mess. You should eat over your plate so you don't make a mess. All right, so this one's going to take a little more breaking down. English does not translate directly very well across to Ojibwe and vice versa. So again, let's look at it. You should eat over your plate. Can I put a period here? Does it make sense all on its own? Yes, it does. This is A form. A. So you don't make a mess. Nope, that one needs more information. That's B form. All right, so we know it's Geen. Geen. We know our should is da. Do we know what they're eating? We do not. And so our verb for eat is the VAI. We send it, and that short vowel falls off the end. Now over your plate. This one's interesting. So the word or the preverb that we would use for over it is going to be ishpe, which kind of means above, or up high. This. So we need ishpe. I'm not going to use ishpe. I'm not going to use a possessive on plate. So the word for plate, onagin. Onagin. Noggin. So we have this that describes where it is occurring, but we still need a locative to indicate like an or on or at the plate. So again, we're just going to add ing to the end. So over the plate. You should eat over the plate. How many times do we have to say that to the little so that way they aren't dropping their food all over? I said that to mine all the time. Okay, so you don't make a mess. So we have do not in here. We know that that's going to be a negative or a gaween form, but B form doesn't use gaween. It just uses the version of seen on the end. The word for he or she makes a mess is Ojibwe binage. So I'm gonna write it down here for more room. Ojibwe binage. Now I'm trying to figure out where I want to go from. Yes. The don't attaches on the verb in some form of seen. So see, and then yin is not yun anymore, it's one. Sorry, that's really tiny. I will put it down here. Let's see. So you don't make a mess. Now, this is interesting. So in English, this could be substituted with in order to. You should eat over your place in order to not make a mess. And so we use j again. J. It's very versatile. Let's see. Let's write out our sentence. You should eat. Gida. Wiesen. Get. Wiesen. Short eyeballs off. Ishfe onagane. Ishfe onagane. You should eat over the plate in order that you don't make a mess. So we skip all of this just to jump straight to the verb. Way, binige. The don't is apparent in the C one. But this whole C1 is the negative in B form. So, gitawisin ishpe onaganing je ombwewe binegesiwan. You should eat over the plate so you don't make a mess. It's actually a lot shorter in the Ojibwe. Yeah, there's more syllables, but fewer words. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. That's all I have for compound sentences. Follow along in the document and we'll give it some practice. I really like writing compound sentences and saying them. I think it's fun. Learning how to navigate in the language, how descriptive we can get is just part of our own growth. And remember, it's okay to make mistakes because no one ever speaks absolutely correctly. No one's language is ever perfect. I hear our first English speakers like me, English is my first language. I make grammatical mistakes all the time. People do all the time, and they're still understood. Remember that at this stage, your goal is to be understood and to convey meaning. And if you make mistakes, that's just part of the journey. Don't expect perfectionism immediately. It is okay. It's much better just to try, just to get the language and the sounds out to be heard. And as you are practicing, you're growing. You know what? Don't be afraid to teach the little ones when you're making mistakes, because what you're showing them is that adults make mistakes too, and that's okay. Little ones make grammatical mistakes in English all the time. I hear the kindergartners say things like, "Him went over there and took the toy," rather than "he went," or many other like sweet little speaking mistakes. I remember a real little one, I think preschool age, said something like, so, or someone came to the door and he said something like, "Who buddy's there?" or "Who buddy's here?" And they're putting things together. What's funny is like little ones, they catch on to patterns. They're really smart. So don't be surprised if the little ones start correcting your own mistakes as they're listening, because they catch on. And it's better to speak and maybe make some mistakes than to not speak and share the language with them at all. So, and I say that just to encourage you and also to encourage myself, because I get really shy about it too. Anyway, happy learning. How do I shut this off?